There was a kind of quiet magic to Christmas in 1960s Britain, a feeling that arrived gently rather than all at once. It came in the shortening days, the damp cold in the air, and the way ordinary streets seemed to slow their pace as December settled in. Christmas was not something that shouted for attention, it revealed itself slowly, through habit, routine, and shared expectation. People remember it not as a single moment, but as a mood that spread across weeks, carried by familiar sights and sounds. It was felt in warm kitchens after dark, in shop windows glowing against early evenings, and in the calm certainty that the same rituals would return, just as they always had. This was a Christmas shaped by togetherness and patience, by making do and making meaning. To understand it now is not simply to look back, but to step inside a rhythm of life that moved a little more slowly. Tonight, we invite you to step back into Christmas as it was in 1960s Britain. The 1960s was a decade of change in Britain, but Christmas remained a steady point of continuity. While fashions, music, and attitudes were shifting, the festive season held fast to traditions that had been built carefully in the years after the war. For many families, Christmas represented reassurance and stability, a moment when the familiar took precedence over the new. Traditions were not yet commercial spectacles, they were practices passed down, repeated each year with quiet confidence. This was a time when Christmas was deeply rooted in the home and the community, shaped by limited choices but rich in shared meaning. Remembering this era is not about escaping the present, but about understanding how these customs help people mark time, create belonging, and find comfort during a rapidly changing world. Christmas shopping in 1960s Britain was an event in itself, unfolding across busy high streets and well-known department stores. Shops like Marks and Spencer, Woolworths, and local drapers became gathering points in the weeks leading up to Christmas. Window displays were carefully arranged, filled with tinsel, cardboard snow scenes, and mannequins dressed in winter coats, drawing families to pause and look. Children pressed close to the glass, eyes fixed on toy trains, dolls, and model cars arranged just out of reach. Inside, the toy departments felt almost magical, with stacked boxes, demonstration displays, and the occasional shop assistant showing how something worked. Gift choices were simpler but deeply considered. Board games, jigsaw puzzles, annual books, and practical clothing were common, chosen with care rather than impulse. For many children, a single special toy was enough to fuel weeks of anticipation. Santa Claus appeared in department stores, seated on a temporary throne, where children queued patiently to deliver their wishes. The encounter was brief, sometimes awkward, but unforgettable. Shopping trips were often shared family outings, ending with a warm drink or a bus ride home through darkening streets, bags resting on laps, and the quiet sense that Christmas was drawing closer. As December progressed, anticipation was built through small, repeated rituals. Children counted the days through school activities, rehearsing carols or preparing simple classroom decorations. Christmas cards arrived steadily through the letterbox, propped carefully on mantelpieces or strung along shelves. The radio times and TV listings were studied closely, pages marked in pencil for programs not to be missed. There was a shared understanding that waiting was part of the pleasure. Christmas did not arrive instantly, it was prepared for, imagined, and slowly welcomed, day by day, through these quiet acts of expectation. Decorating the home for Christmas was a hands-on, family affair, usually centered around the Christmas tree. Whether real or artificial, the tree was brought out with care, often stored away for most of the year in a box or shed. Real trees filled the room with the scent of pine, their branches uneven and sometimes sparse, while artificial trees required patient assembly, branch by branch. Decorations were familiar and reused year after year, each carrying its own small history. Glass baubles were unwrapped carefully from tissue paper, some chipped or faded with age. Tinsel was draped deliberately, its shine catching the light from the room. Fairy lights were tested cautiously, bulbs glowing warmly rather than brightly, casting a soft, reassuring glow. Paper chains and handmade decorations, often created by children, found their place alongside store-bought ornaments. There was rarely a sense of perfection, gaps were accepted, crooked branches ignored. The tree reflected the household itself, shaped by time and use. Once finished, families would sit quietly for a moment, lights dimmed, simply looking at the tree. It was a pause filled with contentment, a signal that Christmas had truly arrived inside the home. Beyond the front door, Christmas in the 1960s extended gently into the neighborhood. Streets were modestly decorated, perhaps with a single string of lights across a window or a small wreath on a door. Neighbors exchanged greetings more readily, stopping for brief conversations in the cold. Children played outside during the school holidays, their voices carrying through the quiet afternoons. There was a shared awareness of the season, felt rather than displayed. Community halls hosted carol services and small gatherings, reinforcing the sense that Christmas belonged to everyone, woven quietly into daily life. Entertainment at Christmas revolved around shared moments, especially around the television and radio. With only a few channels available, programs became communal experiences. Families gathered in living rooms to watch Christmas specials, variety shows, and the Queen's Christmas message, broadcast at a fixed time and watched together. Missing a program meant it was gone, there were no repeats on demand, no second chances. Radios played an equally important role, filling homes with familiar voices and festive music. Traditional carols and popular Christmas songs became part of the background to daily routines, played while meals were prepared or decorations adjusted. These broadcasts created a shared national rhythm, moments experienced simultaneously across the country, binding households together through sound and screen. Christmas Day itself began quietly, often earlier than usual. Children woke first, drawn from sleep by excitement rather than alarms. Stockings, if there were any, were examined carefully, their contents modest but thrilling. Presents were opened slowly, often one at a time, with pauses to appreciate each gift. There was little rush, the day stretched ahead with no urgent plans. Breakfast followed, sometimes later than usual, as families lingered in pajamas, toys spread across the floor. As the morning gave way to afternoon, attention turned to Christmas dinner. Preparations had often begun days earlier, and the meal was the centerpiece of the day. Turkey or chicken, roast potatoes, vegetables, and Christmas pudding filled the table, served with ceremony and pride. Extended family members arrived, coats placed neatly aside, greetings exchanged warmly. Conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the clink of cutlery. After the meal, plates were cleared, and the pace slowed again. Some dozed in armchairs, others returned to games or quiet conversation. The day unfolded gently, without urgency, marked by togetherness rather than spectacle. As evening settled in, the sense of fullness was not just from food, but from shared time, carefully spent. Christmas in 1960s Britain was defined less by what people had and more by how they shared it. It was shaped by routine, patience, and attention, by the comfort of knowing what would come next. There was no need for constant novelty, familiarity was enough. In remembering this time, it becomes clear that the heart of Christmas lay in its rituals, repeated year after year, anchoring families and communities in a changing world. Today, when the season often feels crowded and hurried, these memories offer a quieter perspective. They remind us that meaning is built through presence, not excess, and that the simplest traditions can leave the deepest impressions. This was a Christmas lived slowly, held together by shared moments and gentle expectations. And if these memories resonate with you, if they remind you of a time you lived through or stories once told to you, then you are always welcome here. Britain Rewind exists to preserve these moments, to gently revisit the everyday history that shaped a nation. If you'd like to continue traveling through Britain's past, consider subscribing, sharing your own memories in the comments, and joining us again as we rewind another chapter of life, lived quietly and remembered together, in the soft glow of a winter evening.